The cafe below the office had weak coffee and even weaker Wi-Fi, but I kept going there anyway. Something about the way the morning light hit the corner table made it feel like a pause before the day began. A place to rehearse silence before meetings and small talk. She sat there most mornings too. My boss, her name was Marion, mid-40s, sharp suits, the kind of presence that people straighten up mid-sentence. I used to think she came down for solitude, but then I noticed the way she'd take her time stirring her coffee, tracing circles with the spoon, even after the sugar was long dissolved, like she was waiting for something to settle. Not in the cup, but in herself. I never planned to talk to her. You don't, when the person signing your paycheck also happens to make your pulse jump. But it started with something stupid. She'd forgotten her phone at the counter. I picked it up and caught her just before she stepped out. Hey, you forgot this. She looked at me. That kind of look that feels like it's measuring you, not judging. Then she smiled, small, precise. Thank you, Daniel. You always notice things. It was nothing, but it wasn't nothing. After that, she started saying things like, same time tomorrow, when we passed each other in the hallway. Not as an invitation, but as a habit. And somehow, we ended up at the same table most mornings, facing the window, both pretending the other was the reason we chose that spot. I'd talk about things that didn't matter. Traffic, deadlines, burnt toast. She'd listen in a way that made me forget she was my boss. Sometimes she'd tell me about her daughter who just started college, or about how she used to play piano but hadn't in years. I'd nod, pretending not to picture her younger, or imagine her hands moving over keys instead of typing reports. One morning, she remembered my order before I did. You take 1 sugar, right? She asked. I laughed. How'd you? You always hesitate before adding it, she said. Like you're not sure if you deserve it. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just smiled, folded my napkin until it is a neat square, and she didn't press. That's how it always went. Half finished thoughts, half smiles, things we almost said. Back at the office, she was back to being Miss Hartleid. Firm, focused, impossible to read. But sometimes in meetings, she'd glance up from her notes and our eyes would meet for half a second too long. I'd look away first. Always. One evening, everyone left early for drinks. I stayed behind to finish a report, and she passed my desk on her way out. She paused, coat over her arm. You shouldn't work so late, Daniel. I shrugged. You shouldn't either. She smiled again, softer this time. Touche. Then she left. I thought that was the end of it, until my phone buzzed 5 minutes later. Marion, you're still there, aren't you? I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Me guilty. A minute passed, then another. Marion, come upstairs before you go. I read it 3 times. My reflection in the dark monitor looked as confused as I felt. I set my pen down, stood up slowly, and for a second, the office felt too quiet. Like even the walls were waiting to see what I'd do. I didn't know what she wanted. But I knew this much. Whatever it wasn't just coffee anymore. Her office always smelled faintly of bergamot and old paper. The kind of scent that lingered after meetings. Like the echo of a thought that hadn't been said out loud. When I walked in that evening, she was sitting by the window, city lights scattered across her reflection. Her shoes were off, heels abandoned under the desk. She looked tired, but not in the physical sense. More like she'd been holding something in too long. I didn't think you'd actually come up, she said. You texted, I said, too lightly. She gave a small laugh, like she regretted it as soon as it left her mouth. I suppose I did. There was a thermos on the table, 2 paper cups. She poured tea without asking if I wanted any. The kind of quiet authority that was more habit than command. I took it even though it was too hot. We didn't talk for a while. The hum of the city filled the space where words should have been. I wasn't always like this, she said finally. Like what? She stared out the window. Measured. Careful. I used to teach music. Before all this, that surprised me. You. Music, she smiled faintly. Why does everyone say that? I don't know. You just seem like you were born with a schedule in your hand. That made her laugh, a quiet, real one. Maybe I was. But I liked the way music made time stretch, like everything mattered for just a second longer. I wanted to ask why she stopped, but I didn't. She seemed to answer anyway, Life doesn't always give permission to keep what you love. I looked at her, really looked. The faint lines near her mouth, the slight slump in her shoulders, all the small ways people show the weight of years. But there was something else too. Stillness. Like she'd learned how to survive quiet rooms. You ever think about going back? I asked. She turned toward me. To what? The piano or the person I used to be? I don't know, I said. Maybe both. That earned me a longer look than I expected. The kind that asks a question without speaking it. I sipped my tea to hide my own nerves. She reached over to refill my cup, and our fingers brushed. Just that, skin against skin, brief and ordinary. But something shifted in the air, subtle and irreversible. She froze. I did too. Then she withdrew her hand, almost imperceptibly. You should probably head home, she said quietly. Right. Neither of us moved. The clock ticked softly between us, too loud in the silence. When I finally stood, she didn't look up. Just said, "Thank you for staying a while." I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. For a few days, nothing happened. Or maybe too much happened. Quiet glances across the office, her hand pausing mid-note when she caught me looking, the way her voice softened when she said my name. Small things, but I started to feel them like heat behind glass. Then one morning, she wasn't at the cafe. Her table, our table, was empty. Just a napkin left behind, folded neatly in half. I waited anyway, telling myself I just liked the view. By the third morning, she came in late, hair slightly undone, eyes a little darker than usual. She didn't meet my gaze. "Morning," I said, careful, too casual. She nodded, pulling off her gloves. "Sorry, I've been busy." Her tone was professional. Cool. Like we'd slipped back into the roles we were supposed to play. Boss and employee, lines restored. But the distance, it wasn't clean. It trembled between us, thin as thread. I thought about the tea. The touch, the way her voice had gone soft that night when she said, "Thank you for staying." It replayed in my head, looping quietly. Like a song no one else could hear. That afternoon, we stayed late for a deadline. The office was empty except a faint buzz of the printer, and her pen tapping against her notebook. "You can go," she said without looking up. "I don't mind staying, Daniel." The way she said it, quiet but with a warning underneath. I froze. "I just meant." "I know what you meant." Her eyes flicked up sharp, then softened. "I just don't know if you do." She looked away, but I caught the shift. The quick swallow, the flick of her fingers brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Before I could reply, the door opened. "Still here?" It was Claire, her assistant, poking her head in with a teasing smile. "You two live here or what?" Marion straightened. "Just finishing up," she said quickly. I tried to smile, but it came out wrong. Claire didn't seem to notice. She waved and left. But something in the air had changed, snapped tight. Marion gathered her papers. "This," she began, then stopped. "This isn't fair to you." "What isn't?" She exhaled slowly. "You don't owe me your evenings, Daniel, no," I said. "Then?" "That's not why I stay." She looked at me then, really looked. I could see the argument forming behind her eyes, the one she didn't want to say. Her voice dropped. "Don't." But I'd already taken half a step closer. I didn't touch her. Didn't have to. The space between us did all the talking, her hand hovering, mine almost reaching. The air felt electric, unforgiving. She whispered, "Please." I wasn't sure if it meant stop or don't stop, and then she turned away. The sound of her heels crossing the room was soft. Too soft. Like something breaking that didn't want to make noise. It was raining the day everything almost shifted. Not the cinematic kind of rain, no thunder, no flash. Just that steady, apologetic drizzle that makes everything smell like pavement and memory. We'd both stayed late again, though neither of us said why. When the office finally emptied, she looked out the window and sighed. "I hate walking in this," she murmured. I offered without thinking, "I'll walk you to your car." She hesitated, then nodded once. "All right." The street was quiet. Just the two of us, side by side under the dull orange glow of the streetlights. She held her umbrella low so I had to lean closer to fit beneath it. Our shoulders brushed occasionally, each touch small, but loud in my chest. She laughed once, softly. "You'll catch a cold." "I've had worse." "Always the hero." I smiled. You say that like it's a bad thing. She looked at me then, really looked, and her expression shifted, not playful, not even kind, just unguarded. You remind me of someone, she said after a pause. When I was your age. Someone you cared about. She didn't answer. The silence was her car, parked under a flickering street lamp. She leaned against the door, fiddling with her keys. You shouldn't do this, she said quietly. Do what? Look at me like that. I'm not. You are. Her voice wasn't angry, but fragile. And I'm letting you. The sound of rain filled the space between us, steady and soft. She finally said, You don't understand what it's like to be the older one, to know better and still. She broke off, shaking her head. I've already made enough mistakes that looked like kindness at the time. I swallowed hard. Is that what this is? A mistake? Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp, then uncertain. You tell me. I didn't have an answer. Just the pulse in my throat and the weight of everything unsaid pressing between us. She looked away first. You think it's just an age thing, she said. But it's not. It's my name on your paycheck. It's the whispers if anyone ever saw. It's my daughter's age not being far from yours. That hit something in me. Not shame, but something close. Then why haven't you stopped me? She froze. The rain kept falling soft and unbothered. I don't know, she whispered finally. Maybe I wanted to see how far you'd go before I did. Something in her voice cracked. A confession she didn't mean to give. I stepped closer without realizing it, close enough to smell the faint trace of her perfume, the tea she'd had hours ago. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then she said, barely audible, Tell me you don't mean it. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Her hand gripped the car door, knuckles pale, like she was holding herself together by muscle memory alone. The question hung between us, unanswered, but too real to take back. The next morning, she wasn't in her office. By noon, her assistant said she'd taken 2 days off. Family stuff. She'd mentioned in passing, no explanation. Just gone. The office felt different without her. Colder. Quieter, like the air itself had stopped waiting for something. I tried not to think about the night in the rain, the way her voice had cracked. The question she'd never really asked. I tried to bury it in work, but even the cursor blinking on the screen started to feel like it was mocking me. On the third day she came back. Different. Hair pinned neatly again, tone brisk, eyes unreadable. Morning, Daniel, she said as if nothing had ever happened. Morning, I echoed, pretending to. But everything was off. She didn't go to the cafe, didn't linger in the hallway, didn't glance my way in meetings. She spoke to me through tasks now. Efficient, careful sentences that left no space for breath. I told myself I respected that maybe it was better this way. But every time I saw her turn away, something in me folded a little smaller. Friday afternoon, I overheard 2 coworkers whispering near the printer. Did you hear? Her ex-husband's back in town. Really, the one who left. Yeah, apparently something about their daughter. College stuff. I walked away before they could finish. I didn't need the rest. That evening, I went to the cafe alone. Ordered her drink without meaning to. Black tea, 1 sugar. The barista looked at me fun when I said I'd take it to go. I didn't even like tea. I walked home with it cooling in my hand, the cup sweating through the paper sleeve. At a red light my phone buzzed. Marian, don't wait up for me anymore. That was all. No greeting. No signature. Just a line that sounded final but wasn't. I typed back 3 times, deleted each version. Are you okay? Too concerned. Was it something I did? Too selfish. Do you want to talk? Too hopeful. I ended up typing nothing. Just stared at the empty box until the light turned green and the cars behind me started honking. I didn't go to the cafe the next morning. Or the one after that. But every time I passed by the window I looked. Just in case. Once, I thought I saw her sitting there again, hair loose, eyes tired, stirring her tea in slow circles. But when I stepped closer, it wasn't her. Just someone else waiting for someone else. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. And somehow, I kept waiting for the rest of it. It was almost a week before I saw her again. A Sunday afternoon. The kind of gray, lazy day where everything feels like an afterthought. I was coming back from the grocery store when I spotted her sitting on a bench near the park. No umbrella this time. Just her coat, her phone in her hand. Unread messages lighting the screen and fading again. I almost walked past, almost. But something about the way she looked, like she was holding her breath and didn't know why, stopped me. I said quietly. She looked up, startled, then softened. Daniel. A pause. You're out on a Sunday, trying to pretend I have a life outside work, I said. That earned the faintest smile. Good plan. I sat down beside her. The bench was damp from the earlier drizzle, and the air smelled faintly of wet leaves. Neither of us spoke for a while. The silence wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. It just existed, like something we both deserved. Finally, she said, "You weren't supposed to see me like this." Like what? She shrugged, eyes on the pond, between versions of myself. I didn't know what that meant, but I understood it anyway. "I heard about your ex," I said gently. Her lips tightened. That didn't take long to make the rounds. I didn't ask. "I know," she said, and it sounded like gratitude. A few kids were throwing breadcrumbs to ducks nearby. The wind carried their laughter, small and far away. She spoke again, quieter. "Hay came back because our daughter asked him to. I thought maybe it meant something else. But it didn't." I nodded. "And me." She looked at me then, really looked. Tired eyes, hair falling loose again. "You were something I didn't expect, and I didn't know what to do with that." "You could have just said that." "I couldn't." Her voice cracked. "Because if I said it, it would be real." There it was. The thing sitting between us all this time. Fear, not of each other, but of what it might cost to care. "I don't want to make your life harder," I said. "You already did," she said softly. Then, after a beat, "But maybe that's not the worst thing." She turned toward me, her hand resting on the bench between us. Not touching, just close. The kind of closeness that feels like an answer. "I thought distance would fix it," she said. "But all it did was make me miss the sound of someone saying my name like it still means something." I swallowed hard. "So what now?" She let out a quiet breath. Half laugh, half sigh. "Maybe nothing. Maybe this is just what it is, two people who met at the wrong time." I nodded. The wind picked up. A leaf landed between us, trembling. Then, without thinking, I covered her hand with mine. She didn't move away. Her thumb brushed the edge of my palm, barely there, and she whispered, "Okay." Just that. And somehow, it was enough. It's been 3 months since that day on the bench. Things didn't change all at once. They never do, but slowly, like tea cooling, like mornings growing lighter. The air between us softened. We still worked together, still exchanged polite hellos in hallways. But now, sometimes, she lingers a little longer by my desk. Not enough for anyone to notice, just long enough for me to feel the weight of it. Every Thursday she walks to the cafe again. I started showing up there, too, though we pretend it's coincidence. She still orders black tea with 1 sugar. I still get the burnt tasting coffee I pretend to like. At 7 a.m., she always folds her napkin once, perfectly in half. A quiet ritual, the same as the one that started it all. Sometimes she catches me watching. She never calls me out for it. The first time we sat across from each other again, it felt almost normal. She talked about her daughter's new apartment, how proud she was, how lonely the house feels now. I told her I'd been taking walks before work, trying to stop thinking so much. "You were always thinking too much," she said, smiling faintly. "You were always pretending not to," I said back. That made her laugh, small, tired, beautiful. "We don't talk about what happened." Not directly. The night in the rain, the text, the silence. All of it has turned into a kind of language only we understand. A look that says "I remember," a pause that says "me too." Sometimes, when she hands me a report, her fingers brush mine again, not by accident anymore. It's not a secret, not a promise. Just familiar. Last Friday, we ended up at the park after work. Same bench, same view. The rain had just stopped. She had her thermos this time. "Tea?" she asked. "Always," I said. We sat there quiet. The ducks were gone, replaced by the slow hum of traffic beyond the trees. "You ever think about that night?" she asked after a while. I nodded. "Every now and then. And I think it mattered." She took a sip of her tea, then offered the thermos to me. I took it. The tea was lukewarm. Slightly too sweet, just how she liked it. "Do you ever wish it went differently?" I asked. She looked at me for a long time. Then, no, because it still brought me here. The light began to fade. The sky turned soft and bruised, the way it always does before night gives up completely. We sat there until the streetlights came on, hands resting near each other on the bench, not holding, but close enough to count. When she finally stood, she said, "See you at 8047. And I said, "Wouldn't miss it." Sometimes love doesn't need to start over. It just needs to keep showing up, quietly, like morning light through an office window.